This is the Dog Savant podcast with your host, Brett Endies.
Hello and welcome to the Dog Savant podcast. Today is episode 70. My name is Brett Endies. I am your host. I am a Los Angeles-based dog trainer. Purpose of this show is to share my experience as a professional dog trainer. If you are someone who has a dog and wants to learn how to understand and train them better, if you're working with a local trainer and you'd like to supplement the information that you are getting from them, if you've been failed by a purely positive trainer, or you're getting poor advice from your vet or neighbor and you'd like to get some sound, rational, practical advice that will help you train your dog, understand them, and solve their behavior problems. And of course, if you're a client of mine and you'd like to supplement the work we're doing, this is a podcast for you. As always, I ask, and I've seen a few of them trickle in, please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, share, iTunes, social media, YouTube, all those good places. You can go to my website, dogtrainingla.com, and you can contact me, dogtrainingla@gmail.com. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please send them out to me. I love answering them, both directly and on the show. Let's see. Oh, I did realize that last week I said it was episode 70, but it was actually episode 69. This is episode 70. So thank you for tuning back in. If you're a new listener, welcome. Let's see. What was today's show going to be about? I am super prepared. This is 2 episodes in a row where I have, you hear it? I have some notes, I have some bullet points on today's subject about recall training. Just some ideas so I can kind of bounce off of those or elaborate on them to give more information on the subject of having your dog come on command when needed. I think I've done other podcasts and I've talked about this before on past episodes, but I figure always giving a new, evolved take and give you some more insight. And maybe this is a day where I'm just going to explain it in a way that'll just make the most sense to you and you can apply it in your real life with your dog. One thing that I do want to talk about before we get into that, I almost think that I should be creating a segment of this show, the podcast, called Tales of the Purely Positive, because it's daily that I'm running into this horseshit, whether it be, as I see that say there's always clients that I'm seeing, many a week at this point, that have tried purely positive training or that kind of thinking to try to resolve their dog's behavior problems from another trainer or themselves or a veterinarian. Usually it's another professional that gave them this poor advice. The completely ludicrous things I've heard purely positive trainers say in response to real training, balanced training, proper training tools, and then their own take on dog behavior and where these problems stem from. These people are really disconnected from the root causality of dog behavior problems, and they have no understanding of the human-dog relationship or in any way, shape, or form how these animals are perceiving the world or the type of relationship they do have with humans or what they've been meant to do alongside humans for tens of thousands of years. They're just off kilter. So, tales from the purely positive, blah, 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 that kind of thing. I have a client. They have a dog. It's a little, it's like a King Charles Spaniel. And we started working with them, and they hired me because I had worked with their son-in-law's dog about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and did good work. They were very happy. That was the number one reason why they hired me, because they saw how great their dogs were doing, how happy they were, how, it was all, this is how it goes in the real world. I tell you, it's always a good experience. So I met him. This dog was reactive, had already bit their other adult son, and it was very insecure, antisocial with people, nervous, and the rescue, the dog was young. I think she's not even a year old. And I'm now back working with her, and I'll explain why. I had met him 2 times. Dog was doing better, doing place training, teaching how to have structure and control and focus when there's guests over, so the dog can have a different experience and learn how to see that as the norm instead of reacting to. And it's always transition based. It's when the owners, the guests first arrive. It's when they get up to leave from the couch, pass by. It's that herding, tracking instinct that just goes awry and starts becoming a coping mechanism, in everyday situations, usually socially, usually in the home or on the leash or encountering another dog or human. So we were doing good work, doing what I usually do with these cases. The lady was on board, right? I mean, I didn't have to convince her at all because she had seen my work and was really enthusiastic to want to do this type of training with her dog from the get-go. So I, as you know, was in Italy a few weeks ago. I get an email because they were one of my first appointments when I returned from my trip, and they were saying, "Hey Brett, can we just postpone our trip, our session when you get back? I'll let you know why. I don't want to upset you while you're in Italy, so we'll just talk when you get back." Okay, I just hope everything's okay. My assumption is always, I hope the dog's okay. I hope it wasn't the dog had another incident or whatever it might be. Fast forward, I'm back. I chat with the owner. Mind you, these are sweet people. They're probably in their 60s. They're just nice, gentle people. I've interacted with them enough, and I know the family. I'm in these people's homes pretty intimately. And why I preface it with that is because of what this I call it an animal thinker. I don't know why I call him that, but said to them. So these people got their dog from a rescue, and God, I forgot the name of it, and I don't want to ask him again because I'd rather just not. But boy, I'll tell you, if I had your name, you'd be one of the few that I would be saying it, because you have no right to be in this profession. You're not helping dogs at all. You're perpetuating a problem. You're just warehousing animals and not helping people do the work. So she shows up at the house to do, I guess, like a wellness check just to see if the dog's right, and saw a star mark collar. Now, for most of you know, a star mark collar is a plastic collar with triangle little things that are rounded off on the end. These things I've been using for 15 years. Never once have they hurt a dog. They don't break their skin. They don't choke them, pinch them, nothing like that. But this person literally freaked out. She went batshit crazy. Everything from, "We don't believe in this equipment. This is barbaric. I thought you were decent people," to the owners, right? That's why I was explaining how they're really nice people. On and on and on, and the whole guilt, and this trainer you're working with doesn't know what he's doing, and this and that, and we're going to give you our trainer, our only uses purely positive techniques, and the whole diatribe. We know how it is. These are all damaged people who want to project their psychological deficiencies through animals onto other humans, and it's fucked up. It's really control type shit. What's funny is my client, who, most of my clients are they get it. They're pretty evolved and self-aware. She's like, what's funny, Brett, is we literally saw my therapist right after this happened. It just coincidentally was my appointment, and I told her because I was very upset, and I told her, and before I even got into all the details, this lady goes, "Time out. This person's clearly a trauma, a victim of trauma, abuse." Because normal people, I'm not saying not normal if you're a victim, okay? It's just people that have worked through their shit. Because I'm a victim technically, but I work through my shit. I don't project it all day long. These people, and she knew it. That's someone who's a victim of trauma. And it's funny because that's usually how these people are. Anyway, I just wanted to share another one of these stories in real life, whether it be a dog that I had seen and the dog was worse off because of all of the horrible methods and tools used by purely positive trainers, and just the bizarre thinking. And then something like this where they literally have to just go straight for the jugular for good people who are doing good work. Nonetheless, we had a session since, back on board. Dog's doing great again. The owners are, obviously, they just didn't know what to do. Oh, the one other part of this is the kicker. I don't know why I forgot this. So they had their trainer come out and see this dog and owner. And these people were scared. They didn't know what to do. They're like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" Trainer comes out. Her name's Cecilia. Thank you, Cecilia. I don't know you personally. I had never actually heard of you before this, but I really thank you for being a rational, good trainer. Good trainers, even though we don't all do it exactly the same, a rational, experienced thinker is what we need in our dog community. So she's like, "Oh, you work with Brett. Yeah, I know him. He has a good reputation. You're in good hands. I don't want to step on any trainer's toes," which is what I do too. And then said, "Well, what are you using that was such a whole kerfuffle here, with this rescue lady?" "Oh, a star mark collar?" She opens up her bag and shows I use them too. I just don't let this lady know because she's kind of psychotic about certain tools. There you go. Back on board, doing the work. Owner's doing great. Seeing them in about a week or so, or I think after the holidays, so after Thanksgiving. And then, back in business. So, again, it's just, these people are sensationalists. They're like PETA. I think we all start with a good intent. We don't want to be inhumane to animals. We don't want to hurt them or traumatize them or whatever these people are thinking. But then it goes off the deep end, and then it becomes cultish, tribalism type thinking that is bizarre, and I'm not privy to it. I'm here to help the dogs and do work in the real world. All right, so that is Tales from the Purely Positive. Okay, on to recall training. So, as I had mentioned, I have some bullet points. I want to try to talk about this in a foundation-based way, which means that if you slowly build the skills that will ultimately lead to a proficient off-leash recall in all real-life situations, distances, distractions, environments, there's a step-by-step way, and it's time put in, and it's the key word is consistency, and slowly building and trying to improve the dog's skills while pinpointing the right times to reward and what to work on and what to prove or troubleshoot as you progress. So I'll just try to give an overview. As you know, I try to keep it short and to the point, but sometimes I do go off. So we'll see how it goes based on the notes I have. All right, so laying the foundation of distance, duration, leadership, structure, distractions, all of these things. I always say the 3 Ds, distance, duration, distractions, when it comes to just any applied obedience as far as building the skill and strength of commands. But even leadership, a dog wanting to take your command and not being independent-minded. Any behavioral issues have to certainly be worked out before you can expect a dog to listen in real life, because those issues are going to supersede any skills taught, because these are 2 different tracks. They complement each other, but they're also 2 different tracks as far as a dog can have a great recall, but if they have a phobia of loud noises, that loud noise is going to diminish their ability to respond to recall, and sometimes it's going to be when it's really needed. So, make sure those things are worked out first, and then as far as building it, start with just place training. Start with long leash training where your dog learns to sit, down, stand, whatever it is, and hold some distance and time duration with distractions going on around them. I always say, have your dog be an island when you're teaching him to train, and that might mean being an island in your living room when people are walking around and they're too quick to get up and follow and get distracted by things going on in other rooms or when their food gets put down. Start with that. I always say obedience is like a muscle. You want to build the strength and the ability for a dog to focus and incrementally improve the skills you're teaching them. So work on the foundation, and that comes to the next point I made. Start short and build distance. So, if your dog can't sit next to you when you're holding a leash and they're next to your leg, start with building that kind of attention. As far as even when to use reward, that's where you want to shape the behavior. Most dogs, they learn sit pretty easily, and then it's just using the treats to build those 3 Ds: duration, distance, distractions. Long leash, very important. You have to create consistency. Unless your dog is guaranteed to listen to any command, especially a recall that could save its life, I would highly recommend not being off lead and using long leashes and other equipment that can help promote the ability to phase into more distance and keep your dog safe while you're working. So at some point you can rely on their recall without using any equipment or a long line. So I'm driving. It's very windy today too, so I have to focus half on the road while I talk to you guys. Let's see. Don't use the command till the dog's off the edge. Just as I said, you want to create a Pavlov's effect, and I'll explain more into when we're shaping the actual recall. It's very important to make sure that your dog, at the point where you're going to do it off leash, when they hear the word come or here or whatever the word is that you use, they become just automatic. And you've built up to a point where you're pretty good at trusting it, and you've corrected and proved through any of the limitations they had in your training process. When you always start with the dog focus first. So you want to get it to, of course, your dog's running all away from you towards something, totally distracted. They hear come and then they respond. But you may have to start with your dog sitting in a place, walking to the end of a 6-foot leash and calling them to a spot in front of you, luring them with a treat primarily just to build and shape the behavior, build enthusiasm. You really want to get a dog excited for come. It's a controlled excitement. So you don't want them just getting stimulated and not knowing what to do. You want to pinpoint it. And that's why you use lure and reward training to teach and improve the come command. I know I'm sounding like a kind of lecturer here, but I'm trying here to read off these points in the passenger seat while I'm driving in wind, in traffic, and being present for you guys. How am I doing? High value special reserve treat. I like to do this, and I used to not be a heavy treat guy, and I still use them in limited limited doses, if you will. But for a high value treat, you want to use something that your dog loves. Ideally, it's something healthy. It can be plain turkey, steamed chicken. It could be freeze-dried, liver they sell at the pet shop. You just give into small little pieces. You're trying to hit those reward receptors and condition them. So you only want to give them those treats, the high special reserve treats, high value, only when it's recall training, because that's the command that matters most, and you want to really drive them to want to get to that spot in front of you as fast, efficiently, and automatically as possible. So use that, but don't give it to them for anything else. And then when it comes to training, find another very high value treat, maybe not special reserve, but very high value, and they will only get that for other teaching and improvement of training commands. And then you can give snack treats that are just regular treats they like, but the ultimate one should be kind of hung a little over their head, keep in the cabinet until it's training time so they're motivated to want to respond. I don't like keeping a dog hungry. That's not practical, but a dog, just if you want to chain together improvement with new information, it's good to use a high value treat. That's my take on that. Okay, now here's a biggie, and I keep pointing out this, no pun intended. You point out a spot and stick to it for where the dog arrives. And that means when a dog hears come, they do not understand the verb come. They are thinking to get to a location based on that cue, the word come or here, whatever you use, and they learn to get to it. And I like to use either sitting in front of me or next to me, so a dog automatically knows. And I am pretty neurotic and obsessive about making sure this is an exact response. So if your dog, if you picture him coming, facing you, sitting, looking up at you as close as possible, and holding a treat, and kind of hitting that, was at 6 o'clock where they're facing you. But if they're sitting at 5 o'clock, I adjust them to 6 so that you get a consistent pathway, because that's how learning theory works, people, is that you hear something or some association happens to an outcome. And that's where a dog has to have a pretty clear pathway from the word come, the cue, to the outcome. And you want to build that. Start as close as possible or as necessary, and then you improve the distance, all types of scenarios where the dog's not listening. Because once you get that from where the dog is sitting and focused first, then you want to apply it. So you want your dog to be out in the real world, distracted, and you keep intensifying them running away with more distance, chasing prey, playing with other dogs, and you just teach them that when they hear the word come, everything stops. The come program starts running until they hit that spot in front of you or next to you, or wherever you choose. And then they hold it, because that's important for any command, is the duration. So once they get there, they have to maintain until you release them or tell them something else to do. And if that becomes something that as they improve and as you motivate them, they get the message because you're being 110% consistent, you'll see it takes a couple months with a young dog. It takes some time to reestablish good habits with a dog that maybe doesn't have the best association for a recall command. So you have to do some patchwork. Nonetheless, it can happen. You just have to be consistent. Every trainer tells you that, and there's a reason for it. Okay. Some other things, just to build motivation and to draw a dog towards you and correct mistakes. I like to use different angles, meaning teaching a dog that if they run to one direction, I counter it by going backwards in the opposite direction to lure them towards me, either with a treat or reeling the leash and getting them to draw in my direction. Even when they're coming straight to me like a bullet, I still back away a little bit at first to build that pull. When you back away from a dog, that's why a dog tries to jump at you. You don't back away because it makes them want to jump more at you. Or if they want to grab a treat too aggressively, you don't want to pull away. You want to kind of hold it steady or push in a little. It negates that reflex. So you do want to draw them towards you and then do a hard sit when they get to you. And that's where all the leash work and control helps, because you can guide them with your movements and the luring of the leash and the treat to you to get them into that spot where you want them to sit ultimately when they arrive. So working through that, luring, backpedaling, using different angles, using you as the vehicle with the equipment to draw a dog towards you, and you'll see they just won't find that spot. If a dog runs past you, a big one is the overshoot. You get dogs that love coming to you, but then they get too much momentum. My Rottweiler Bowie had that issue, and what you have to do is sometimes let them overshoot you. Don't try to catch them, but let them shoot past you, pull a 180 and then draw them back in front of you, and that's the only time. And the more they do it initially without overshooting, they're going to realize slowing down, hitting that mark right there is the most efficient way to get the treat and maintain the command that you're asking for. Another alternative to treats, it's a given. You got to get excited for them so they feel the enthusiasm, but also just, I call it the magic spot. most dogs, I don't think any dog really, can reach the one spot where their tail meets the top of their butt there. It's the base of the tail. And that's why fleas hide there. They like to go where the dogs can't bite at them. But it feels good. So it's scratched. So they learn to associate, if I hear the word come and I come to you, not only do I maybe get a treat or you get excited and you lure me towards you, but I get a good scratch. You do something where you get, the belly rubs are going to be counter to them getting back into position, but they come to you, give them a quick scratch, have them sit, reach over, do it again, petting on the head, or wherever your dog prefers, but something that motivates them to associate when they hear come, that performing a certain action and doing a certain task to completion will get them something that's in it for them, and it's like a special bonus for doing so as you build the skills. Phasing off leash, that's important. You have to, of course, when a dog is pretty consistent, where you've dropped a long leash and you've worked through all of your confounds where the dog can actually listen pretty consistently, and you've got off leash going where there's no distractions and in the house and familiar, safe environments. It's like, well, let's start proofing and let's start doing it without the leash. And it could mean dropping a leash more. It could be phasing into a thinner line. It could be using shorter leashes. Every dog's a little different, so you have to work it through. And that's where sometimes the micro steps take, where you have to be patient, because it could take as long to phase a dog off leash as it took to build up the command altogether. So be patient, stick with it, because then eventually it'll be worth it. Now, sometimes you may need some help with the phasing off, and that's where certain training tools can be helpful. E-collars, they're very handy. They're really good for off-leash training. They were originally made for hunting dogs. An e-collar means electronic collar. People call them shock collars, invisible leashes. They are very useful if used safely, and if you've taught a dog so well where that, if the right candidate as far as dog, it can make sense to them why now we're getting it off leash. And even that, like I was talking about phasing off of a leash, you need to phase them off of an e-collar, electronic collar also. But they're not what people think they are. If you use them properly and with a dog that, again, is a good candidate, you actually can get some really good off-leash results. And these things can go, some models I've seen now go over a mile in range. So if you like to hunt or hike or just get out there with your dog and be more, off-leash, I don't recommend off-leash where it's not allowed, but if you want to get your dog more freedom, they're very handy. And if you use them or work with a trainer who's very skilled and experienced, you'll see that they're really not what some of the sensationalist propaganda from, of course, the purely positive PETA kind of people tell you, that they're barbaric and they shock the dog like a cattle prod or something. I use them with clients from time to time, and they're very safe and humane if used properly, and they can really take your off-leash training to another level. And like I said again, and this is, I kind of finished my notes with this, if there are social or behavioral issues, work through them first. Your dog, just like people, if they're not balanced in their mind and they have unresolved issues, it's going to interfere with their ability to get the job done. All right, that is it. This has been a little bit longer one. Look at us grow. Thanks again. It's been episode 70. Please don't forget, subscribe, rate, review, share. I need that from you. It helps motivate me to keep doing this. It'll get other people to find us so I can help their dogs. And thanks again, guys.